Tell you what, it is a nice feeling waking up on Monday morning knowing that my football team actually won a game because I can wear my Panthers stuff in front of y'all with at least a little bit of pride, even though it was our first win since last November. Anyway, welcome back everybody. My name is Tucker, and today we're going to be talking about what is next for the Boston Celtics. I'm sure a lot of you guys knew this video was coming today after they lost Game 6 last night to the Miami Heat, and congrats to both the Heat and the Lakers for advancing to the NBA Finals. But today's focus is going to be on what is next for this Boston Celtics team, because I think there's actually a lot of interesting wrinkles within this group that you wouldn't expect for a team that was as close to making the finals as they were. And it has a lot to do with how well certain players do or do not perform in the postseason. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, is how they can potentially remedy some of the issues on this roster right now, potentially be a championship team moving forward. But really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload basically every single day, and leaving a like rating is a great way to let me know not only that you're enjoying the content, but also helps out the video a ton on YouTube. And you can also check me out on Twitch at @Spiller_TD. I've been streaming over there, you'll never believe this, basically every single day over the last week and a half or so. I've seen a lot of you guys come over there. It's been a lot of fun. So if you want to, come hang out. Also, it's pretty likely that by the time you're watching this, I'm live right now if you want to come hang. Okay, so obviously if you're a Celtics fan waking up this morning, that's a tough way for your season to end. You had a legitimate chance to make the NBA Finals, and I actually think that they would have matched up really well with the Lakers had they made it to the Finals. And once the Bucks went out and it was clear they were going to be playing the Heat once they advanced to the Conference Finals, I'm sure a lot of Celtics fans kind of got their hopes up thinking, man, like we could actually make the Finals, we could actually do this. And they just didn't play it well enough to win. The correct team ended up winning the series. They played better than the Heat in a couple of games. You could argue there were a couple of games that they certainly should have won that they ended up losing, but they really had difficulties closing games. But there's certainly plenty of positives for this team this year. Tatum is clearly going to be a perennial All-NBA caliber player. Jaylen Brown continues to improve. There's some other younger guys on the roster that have looked okay as well. But my main issue right now with this team is they have two players on this roster that are now 30 years old that are very expensive and really didn't help this team nearly as much in the postseason as you would have hoped that they would. And those two players are Kemba Walker, and the other is Gordon Hayward, who I'm giving a slight pass to because of the injury stuff. But when you're paying two players that much money and you're relying on them this much in the postseason, and their statistics and their impact on the game are pretty minor, that's a big issue. So in my mind, that's one of the biggest issues they need to attempt to fix on this roster. Is obviously at the 5 spot, they need a bit of an upgrade, but they need to find another guy that they can rely on in the postseason without giving up Tatum, Brown, or Marcus Smart. As maddening as Marcus Smart is sometimes, the cost-controlled component of this, the value that he provides compared to how much he's being paid, I think makes him a very positive asset for this group, even though there are times where he shoots the ball way too much and he turns the ball over and it's just disgusting to watch. He's still a nice player to have on the roster. So they need to figure out those two things, the 5 spot and getting another guy that they can rely on in the postseason. And the first thing to note about them is that they do have trade assets. They have their own first-round pick this year, in addition to Memphis's pick, which landed at 14, and the Milwaukee pick this year as well. So 3 first-round picks, and I find it extremely unlikely that they're going to make a selection with all 3 of these picks. They're either going to move up in this draft and they're going to find a player, whether it be the 5 spot or otherwise, that they really like, and they're going to use these picks to move up, or they're going to trade those picks away to get a player again to get another guy for this roster. And as you look at their payroll for next season, everybody is coming back except for Brad Wanamaker and potentially Enes Kanter. We don't really know yet because he does hold a player option for next season. And it's a good thing that they don't really have to re-sign anybody because they're already at $140 million in payroll for next season, which obviously is a lot. And I'm going to keep the free agency and cap space portion of this video pretty brief because, long story short, the Celtics don't have any and they're not going to have any moving forward, because this was always the way it was going to work out. When Al Horford's contract ran out, they were going to re-sign Jaylen Brown to an extension. When Gordon Hayward's contract ran out, they were going to sign Jayson Tatum to an extension. That was always how it was going to work out. So you might look at it and think, oh, look, they have cap space next offseason. They don't. They're going to re-sign Jayson Tatum. And really, they're not going to have significant cap space until either they move someone like Kemba Walker or Kemba Walker's contract runs out in a couple of seasons. So as far as cap space and flexibility on that end, the Celtics don't really have any, but what they do have are plenty of opportunities and plenty of needs to make a move via the trade market or in the draft. Now, of course, they also have the option of internal improvement, just keeping this roster the way it is and relying on the improvement of Tatum, Brown, and the other guys like Romeo Langford, the Williamses, relying on those guys to improve internally to raise this team's ceiling. And certainly you can do that. And I think for the most part, they will do that. Unless a star trade comes available where someone like Romeo Langford, Grant Williams, Robert Williams ends up in a trade, internal improvement is going to be a big deal for this group. You know that they're going to do a good job of developing their players, and that's certainly something to keep an eye on. But now we get to the most interesting part of this roster, and that is the trade market. I already mentioned that they have 3 draft picks that they can move, and they also have a couple of salaries that they can use to potentially match in a big star type of trade. I don't think that they're going to want to move Marcus Smart in this, but they certainly have Gordon Hayward's big expiring. And if they wanted to throw Kemba Walker in for a potential star as well, depending on the situation, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that either, depending on what his value is in the trade market. And this morning, I put a trade on Twitter that some people like and some people don't. I would just kind of mess around with some stuff in the trade machine with a Bradley Beal trade going to the Celtics, Buddy Hield going to the Wizards, and the Kings basically getting the Memphis pick and some cap relief in exchange for giving up Buddy Hield and Corey Joseph. And the mindset here was just, I understand that there's good shot making on this roster already. They've got Kemba, they've got Jaylen Brown, they've got Jayson Tatum. But when you're looking at the trade market right now, the most obvious guy for me is Bradley Beal. And even though ideally they would be bringing someone in at the 5, I don't know where you're getting a star at the 5 right now when you're looking at the trade market throughout the league. So I think this Bradley Beal deal potentially makes sense. They've got those multiple first-round picks that they can trade away. In their offense, when you're looking at Kemba, Beal, Tatum, and Brown, and then whoever they put at the 5, their offense would simply be incredible. I believe in Bradley Beal as a postseason player as well, and that would take some of the pressure off of someone like Kemba Walker to not feel like he has to create and has to do so much offensively, because I think there were times in the postseason they were really trying to force him to be an aggressive offensive player, and that kind of caused some issues for them at times offensively, especially later in games. So Bradley Beal might not be an ideal trade candidate for Boston, but he's probably the most available star and a guy that they could potentially go and get. But I want you guys to use this video, as well as I'm going to put it on Twitter eventually as well, as a way to tell me who you think the Celtics should trade for and what trades you think they should be making. I'm probably going to be doing a Boston Celtics trade machine video coming up soon, because I think they have one of the best opportunities, and they are pretty much the team to watch moving forward for potential star trades. So down in the comment section below, let me know what you guys think some potential trades could be for Boston. You guys crushed it with the Bucks trade machine video. Again, I'll put this on Twitter as well, but use this comment section and Twitter as a way to tell me who you think they could potentially be trading for and what trades they could potentially make. Because again, ideally, it would be the 5 spot. Maybe you're looking at someone like Miles Turner, especially if like Mike D'Antoni goes to Indiana and they want to get rid of one of the bigs. But other than that, as you look around the league and you look at potential trade targets, the 5 spot is a little bit tough to come by right now. And that coupled with the fact that I understand what people are saying about the perimeter playmaking, they have plenty of that, but in the postseason, it seemed a little bit dry at times, and it seemed a little bit difficult for them to score on the perimeter. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go after a star. And like I said, they certainly have the assets and the opportunity to make a deal like that happen. And right now, that's pretty much it for Boston. I like their team. They were really close to making the finals, but I have concerns about the 2 really highly paid players on their roster that didn't perform in the postseason. And I had concerns coming into the playoffs about Kemba Walker, a player that we really hadn't seen much in a playoff environment, and as a smaller scoring point guard, which they can have issues in the postseason. And ultimately, his statistics and his impact on the game really didn't match up with how much he's being paid currently. And then Hayward, I give a little bit of a pass because clearly he was hobbled with injury, didn't play much in the postseason. And then once he did come back, wasn't at 100% certainly. But at the same time, I mean, you're expecting someone like that to perform when you're paying them as much money as he is being paid. And he will be moving on after this season unless they re-sign him to a much, much cheaper deal. So getting another guy, trying to find a way to make this roster work in the postseason, using those draft assets, potentially making a big star trade. Those are all on the table right now for the Celtics this offseason. They're one of the most interesting teams to watch, certainly one of the most interesting trade teams to watch. We know that Danny Ainge has no fear when it comes to potentially making a big move, so I'm really interested to see how that all ends up in Boston. But that's about it. That's all I have for the Celtics in terms of what's next for them. Pretty straightforward, but I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.